What's going on, Johnny Nation? Welcome to episode 81 of the Eye of the Storm podcast. My name is David Barov, and it's the third installment of Coachcast with St. John's assistant coach, Bob Walsh, where we discuss the ins and outs of what's been going on with St. John's basketball. Coach, a lot has happened since we last spoke. St. John's has gone 4-2 with a road win over West Virginia, 3 wins at home against Sacred Heart Fordham, and kicking off Big East play with a win over Xavier. I'll start here. Do you think since we last spoke, specifically since the loss to Boston College, that the team has turned a corner? The defense has been night and day since then, especially the matchup zone. So are you and the staff viewing it like the patience and the growing pains have led up to right now where you're starting to see things kind of come together?
I think we've gotten better. I think we're a better team than we were a month ago, which you should be. I don't know if I'd say we've turned a corner because you never know, what really is a corner and what's going to put you in the right direction once you figure out what's around that corner. So, I don't know if there was a big leap. I think gradual day-to-day progress with our players, with our team as a group playing together. It's commonplace in college basketball, but it's still not easy to start with a whole new team. We only have a handful of guys that have played for Coach Pitino before, and most of these guys haven't played together. So I definitely think we've gotten better. We've gotten better defensively for sure. I think we've gotten more comfortable offensively. I still don't think we're anywhere near as consistent we need to be to get to, a high level in the Big East, but hopefully that's coming.
The last 3 games, we've really seen that zone defense kind of start to shine a little bit, especially after Coach has been very disappointed in where it was up until recently. We've been talking about it, fans have been talking about it on social media, announcers are talking about it, the matchup zone defense. Can you just discuss some principles and just, in some layman's terms for the listeners, in regards to what this defense really is about, why it's been successful?
Well, it's a pretty aggressive 2-3 zone. It's not your standard, high school zone where you just stand there with your hands up and let them throw it around the perimeter and hope they miss. Coach P always wants our defense to be aggressive and to dictate. It takes a lot of work in the zone and a lot of communication, and in a lot of ways, more so than when you're playing man-to-man, because you're not attached to one guy and his strengths and weaknesses. You're passing guys off. You're communicating on cutters going through. The 5-man really plays a big role in the way he communicates, and I think Joel and Zuby have both stepped up in that regard and taken on that role when we are playing zone. Ultimately, it's man-to-man in your area, right? So it still comes down to if DJ or Jordan or Nah has the ball up at the top, or if Glenn Taylor, or Chris Ledlam or RJ are closing out on the wing, they've got to play that guy one-on-one, and they've got to be able to guard him in their area. The support is there in the zone where you kind of know who's on your left and who's on your right and who you're tied to. And the idea is to be guarding somebody, right? If you don't have a man, something is wrong, right? We've got to figure that out. And so our communication has been good. The way we match up personnel-wise has been good when we're in the zone. I don't think it's something that we're necessarily going to play all the time. I think we like the matchups that we had with it. Certainly with Xavier and some with UConn. So, we've worked on it. It's not like we just started working on it, the day before the Xavier game. We've worked on it in the summer and we know we're going to play against some zone, especially, when you're playing by games, you're going to play some zone against some zone. So we've had it in, and our guys are understanding the concepts, keeping the ball out of the paint and getting to shooters. And that's really what the zone is about.
And I think Joel mentioned that in one of the post games where, the mission really was don't let him into the paint. I think he said that after the Xavier win. But you perfectly are leading me into my next question. And, Coach Pitino has a long history where defense is what his calling card is, and he has a long history of mixing up man and zone defense. Was there a deliberate plan or a decision made about waiting until conference play to start showcasing it? Because, like you said, I mean, nobody's sitting here thinking that, oh, well, 2 days before the Xavier game, you guys just decided to put together his own defense and throw it out there. But was there some gamesmanship about waiting until conference play, or was it simply not ready until the last few weeks in order to be unleashed?
I don't think there was any gamesmanship. I mean, Coach P is always, every day we're talking about what's best for our group. And obviously early in the season, we were unhappy with our defense. I mean, we had some games, Dayton, Michigan, where they just tore through our defense, and we were playing mostly man-to-man. And obviously there was some press involved there too, but we're giving up really astronomical numbers and giving up a ton of threes. And so every day we talked about what we needed to do differently, whether it was ball screen coverages, whether it was, should we trap the post? Should we trap their best player off of a ball screen? And the zone defense was a part of that, where, it wasn't like we were waiting to unleash it, or we felt like, we've got to get it to a certain point before it's ready to go. But we're constantly talking about what's best for our group. And we know we're going to have to be a good man-to-man team to be good. We're also going to have to be a good zone team to be good. I don't know. There are going to be games where, you could be a great man-to-man defensive team and the other team is making shots and they're shredding it and their offense looks great. And you need to just throw a curveball out there, to get them a little bit off balance. And I think that's what the zone has done for us. It's been able to keep our opponent a little bit off balance and not let them get comfortable. When you're playing a great offensive team with as aggressive as we are, we have our pressure, which not a lot of teams press as much as we do. Our man-to-man is pretty aggressive. And then we have the zone. That's three different ways where we can force you to prepare for us and hopefully keep the offense a little bit out of rhythm.
And that was something that I actually mentioned, is that the zone defense, obviously it's a new wrinkle. And even Sean Miller said after the Xavier game that how they were unprepared for it because they didn't see you guys play it before. So now it just adds another thing for opposing teams and scouts to get ready for with St. John's. But in regards to keeping teams uncomfortable, it's only been deployed for 2 games. You held Xavier to 66 points and you held UConn to 69. In both games, you saw a team that looked uncomfortable and they both didn't really look super prepared for it. So what has made it so successful early on, even though it's only been on display for 2 games in real live action?
I think it's been 2 things, really. It's been our ability to guard the ball out of it, right? You've still got to win your matchup one-on-one. And maybe they're coming at you at a little different angle or a little different pace because they see a zone and they're not running, the crisp man-to-man offense that they're used to running. And then it's the communication. It's guys being in position to help one another in ways, we've kind of avoided the big mistake, so to speak, where, hey, we rotate and then we don't cover down, man-to-man, and we're giving up an open layup, or our ball screen coverage gets us stuck somewhere and we have a mistake that gives up an easy basket. We didn't give up too many easy baskets, with our zone. So I think the way we've been able to guard the ball in it, the way we've relied on help in it, and the way we've communicated to help each other those have really been the keys against it. Now, that's also stuff that's going to make our man-to-man defense better. So, we're also hopefully continuing to get better in that area. And the zone is just another weapon we have, that's going to hopefully help us win games.
On December 20th, Xavier came to Carnesecca Arena. It was Rick Pitino's return to the Big East play, but it's also your return to Big East basketball as well. What does Big East basketball mean to you? You spent some time at Providence. What kind of player do you want as a coach, and what kind of player do you need to be to succeed in this conference?
Well, it means a ton to me personally because I grew up in New York, and I grew up I was in high school in the 80s in New York when the Big East, really took over and changed college basketball. So it's a dream every day for me to be a part of it. I love being in it, but, the competitive nature of Big East games is just different. Now, I'm sure every league will say that, right, in league play. And I don't, I'm a little bit biased. This is the league that we're in, but we talked before our game against Xavier about how we only had 3 guys that had ever played in a Big East game before. And it's not just, hey, league is different. It is, hey, the Big East is different. And, somebody gets bumped in practice, or somebody gives up an offensive rebound in practice where they clearly get pushed in the back, where those plays happen. And coach is saying, guys, this is the Big East. You think, like, I don't care if you got pushed. Like, you think you're getting that call? The game is definitely more physical. Both teams, there's a competitive edge and a physicality to the Big East that's just different. So the type of player that you need is somebody who is highly competitive, somebody who's very, very physically tough, somebody who's not going to make any excuses, somebody who can hold their composure, right? And be able to play at an elite level and compete at a high level, yet handle the emotion that takes place in the Big East. When Carnesecca has been a great home court advantage for us, and we go on a little run against Xavier and there's juice flowing through the crowd, you got to be able to handle that. Then you go to the XL Center in Hartford and there's 16,000 people screaming at you. And, for a long part of that game, we were able to keep them under control with our execution, and being able to handle that. So the Big East is special. It's the elite basketball only conference in America. It has been, for forever, as far as I'm concerned, since I was, 7 or 8 years old. So the games are highly competitive. They're a lot of fun, and it's a gauntlet. After we beat Xavier, I was talking to Mink and BT afterwards, and I was like, yeah, only 19 more of these, but it's a lot of fun, and the energy is terrific.
One of the biggest takeaways from the Fordham win was the defense looking more connected. Then we saw it at another level, reached with Xavier at home, the juice in the crowd, sold out Carnesecca Arena. And what you just said about the kind of players that you needed to be tough. And a lot of these guys didn't play in the Big East before, but that was their first taste of it. And leading into this season, a lot of people said, well, does St. John's have the guys on the roster who are taking the step up in conference, whether it's from the MAC, whether it's the Ivy? Do they have the guys to compete in the Big East? After the Xavier game, Coach Pitino said, I haven't been impressed with my team at all this year except tonight. Was that a sentiment echoed by the entire coaching staff when you saw the toughness of this team, when you saw a team really come together and beat a really good and well-coached Xavier team?
We felt good after that game for sure. I think we were all a little concerned just about the inconsistency of our team. I do think we have the right guys on the bus for sure. We've got guys that have competed at a high level. Is there an adjustment level to playing in the Big East every night? There certainly is. Is there an adjustment level to playing for a guy like Coach Pitino, who's just relentless about everything that we do? Absolutely. So there's still a little bit of a work in progress there. But it felt good in our first Big East game to come out, not only to play well, be able to handle, a very good offensive team. And the thing about that game was they are a great offensive team that plays really fast at a fast pace. And we were able to control that, right? We didn't allow them to play the way they wanted to play. So it was a good step in the first game for the Big East. But man, every one of them is like its own chapter in the book. It's like, okay, now we're, great. Now you're going to UConn, and then here it's like, okay, we've got Hofstra, and then look at our January schedule, So every one of them is sort of like a deep breath, start a new chapter, start over, and find a way to prepare and win a Big East game.
Well, chapter 2 was UConn at the XL Center. I was there. It was an absolutely insane environment. For me, and I mentioned this on a previous episode, I've been at Cameron Indoor. I've been at sold out Vegas championship fights. What I experienced in the XL Center last Saturday, it's going to be really hard to top, and it's up there for me. What did you guys learn about yourselves and your team after a hard-fought 4-point loss to UConn on the road?
One of the things I think we learned is that we're mentally tough enough and capable, right? There was no sort of wow factor, for a number of guys, 11 guys who were playing in their first Big East road game, against the number 5 team who won a national title last year. There was no sort of awe, deer in headlights, wow factor. So that says something about our maturity and our mental toughness. We learned we got to block out. We gave up some key rebounds late in the game where, part of that is just, maybe we're a little, we think we're a little too tough. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to go get it. I'm going to go get, well, they've got 6'8", 6'9", 7-foot guys too, who are trying to go get it. We didn't do a great job blocking out late in the game. And that's on us. I mean, it's one thing if you're hitting people and you lose the battle here and there, and then maybe you gain 50-50 balls, but we had the lead late in the game. And we felt like if we had executed on offense and defense in the last 3 minutes, we win the game. And that's a game that carries you all season, literally, right? A road win, again, that's with you all year. So we've got to execute better offensively down the stretch. We certainly have to block out. Our ball screen defense was inconsistent in that game. There's areas to improve. It was good to see that our guys were ready to play and we showed up ready to win, but you don't get credit in the Big East for showing up. You got to get the job done. And we've got to learn to get the job done in an environment like that.
Yeah, 2 of those rebounds, Tristan Newton getting 1 on the floor, and then Cam Spencer getting that late one with about 90 seconds left in the game was a killer. In that game, Joel Soriano only took 5 shots. He made 4 of them, took 7 free throws and made 6 of them. Even though he was in foul trouble and was battling an athletic big in Samson Johnson, who had a really good game himself. When you guys watched film back, do you feel like Joel should have had the ball more, and especially in the second half, given how effective and efficient he was?
I think that's fair to say. Yes. You look at the box score afterwards and you've got an all-league center who's shooting 70% from the field coming in. We've got to find ways to get him more shots. Now, Joel's also got to take some responsibility for that. Like, we've got to get him in the paint, in the arc, posting up, working for the ball, demanding it. Our guards have to do a better job of finding him and getting it to him. So it's a concerted effort. And you don't really, it's hard to measure those things during the game. It felt like our offense was pretty solid, after a bit of a jittery start. So you don't look at it and go, man, Joel's got to get more shots here. But we have to overall understand just by involving Joel, right? Even if they're going to double him, if he's down on the block and we look inside and the weak side guy comes to help, now we can skip the ball, create driving lanes. He's an effective force, and we have to do a better job of making sure he's a focal point. And even if, he may really help us and only take 5 shots because they double him or they do certain things, but then we're moving the ball off of him and creating driving lanes or open threes where we can get drive and kick threes, and somebody else can knock down a big shot to help us win.
Yeah, well, that's where I was also going to go, because even late in the game with, I think the second to last possession, when he got the ball in the paint, they tripled him basically, and he gave the ball up to Ledlam, who got fouled, to go to the line. I mean, he's demanding so much attention and so much, so much of the other team's energy and I think Joel does deserve a lot of credit for not trying to force too many bad shots. I'm sure he could have if he really wanted to when he got the ball and if he wanted to look out for himself. So I think it's twofold, but it is interesting that you say that. The other guy that's supposed to be getting him the ball, Jenkins, he's shooting just 26% from 3 this season. He's had a tough time shooting against UConn, going 4-13. Balancing him being the point guard with being the most reliable option on the floor to orchestrate the offense when he's having a poor shooting night. Does there have to be a time where you have to ask him to be more of a facilitator than a shooter when one thing is going better than the other? And, how do you get somebody like that out of a shooting slump when he is, in 4-13, even though, the game before that, he was 5 of 10. So, but in a big spot like that, there's a lot of eyes on Danis.
First of all, yeah, going back to Joel and Led, it's funny. We talked about that yesterday. Joel asked about that play, and Led was there, and he was saying, should I have just taken it to the hoop there? Because he he had the ball. We got him the ball. And I said, well, Joel, you got to make the right play. You know what I mean? You were triple team. I mean, Led was open, down to 20 seconds to go.
Right.
You get Led going to the basket and he gets 2 free throws. Like, we're fine with that. But it was interesting because Joel was kind of asking that question, because I think he wants to help the team more. DJ, it's a good point. DJ's a good shooter. I mean, I think he was a 35% shooter last year for Iona. The rhythm is a little bit different this year. I think, teams are heating him up a little bit and giving him a little bit more pressure than he's used to. And again, our other guards have to alleviate some of that pressure. We don't want some of our bad offensive games. It seems like DJ's dribbling around the top of the key with the ball, looking for somewhere to go with it. And we don't have a lot of action going and he ends up trying to force a play. So again, I think it's a team effort. I think our spacing has to get better. Guys like Jordan and Naheem have to step up, and draw attention and be able to make open shots. And DJ has to make simple plays. I think DJ is somebody who wants to win really bad. He really knows how to play. So I don't think it's a conversation where you ever have to say to DJ, hey, be more of a facilitator, or, hey, it's not your night. We need you to try and do this. When you give DJ a look, or I go over to talk to him in practice about an offensive set or a play, before I can finish my sentence, he'll finish it for me, be like, hey, DJ, you looked inside to Joel. Rather than take that pull up, the help was coming. He's like, oh yeah, I know I had to skip pass. Glenn was open in the corner, like he sees the game really well. So we've got to make sure our offense is sort of more connected and more cohesive. And I think getting Joel more involved will help DJ. I don't think it's a matter of talking to DJ about changing the way he plays. Right. I think it's a matter of getting some other guys to step up and making sure DJ's aware, like, he doesn't have to try and take on too much of a burden. And if our spacing is good and our movement is good, it should open up better shots for everybody.
Yeah, and I see the fan side of it, where after a bad game, obviously everybody's trying to point fingers or see like where things could get better. And you see the point guard take 13 shots and he has an off night. It's like, oh well, why didn't other guys shoot it? But if you look back on it, and I watched the game back, there's not many shots where DJ has a hand in his face or he's chucking something up. So, and I think that's been consistent throughout the year. It's easy to say a shot's bad when he misses, right? But if he's getting good looks, and I know that Coach Rick Pitino is really adamant on, if you've got the open look or if you've got a shot, shoot it. And especially with the 3-point shooting, because I know he got on Chris Ledlam the other day after a game when he wasn't taking some open threes. So I think that it's easy in hindsight to say that guys are, shouldn't be shooting as much, but if they're open, and we've seen DJ hit that mid-range, how many times have we seen him start a game with that, 18-foot pull-up? I just think that fans need to, I guess, take a step back and realize what's a good shot and what's a bad shot.
I think fans just need to be fans. I mean, I'm fine with it. You know what I mean? Like when if somebody has a bad shooting game, you're going to sit there and go, man, why didn't we get Joel more shots? Or why didn't we do this? Or why did he do that? Like, that passion is what we want. We want, 15,000 people in the garden, screaming, DJ, throw it inside, or, come on now, make a shot. So, but one of the things we talk about, and we talked about at that game is I remember saying it in the huddle, like, let's try and create shots for each other. Like a lot of times when the defense is good, when there aren't a lot of, guys start a little bit too much of like, all right, well, let me try and create something here and see if I can get a shot. And coach is always talking to the guys about, when the ball gets reversed, drive it to the middle and get one of your teammates a shot, and when we're really unselfish, that's what we're doing at our best. Now, the other guys are trying to win too, right? So, they feel like, hey, if we can make it hard for them to get it into Soriano, and we can really pressure, Jenkins, give a lot of help, and maybe, we can, make them uncomfortable. So, but we've got to create shots for our teammates. Like, that's when we're at our best. So guys have to be able to handle the pressure. understand the right play. We've got to keep our spacing and then share the ball when it's necessary. And that's when I think we're getting our best looks.
The 3-point shooting has struggled the last 4 games. St. John's shooting just 28%, with the three being such an emphasis for Coach Patino and his offense. How do you try to fight through these struggles? And is it a silver lining that even though St. John's has shot the three poorly in these games, that you guys were able to get a Big East win and had UConn on the ropes?
I think it's some of what we talked about, right? Like we've got to emphasize Joel and Zuby and our bigs a little bit more. Like, hey, let's start with those guys, and so you're not, Coach P is never going to tell guys not to shoot or don't shoot threes. I mean, he revolutionized the game with with the threes, but you do stuff like emphasize, let's make sure we get it inside, right? So on the break, let's get it to Joel. Joel, you got to get on the block, draw the defense. Let's get some inside out looks. Let's touch the paint, right? Let's not be thinking three, the first time down the court, so that, hey, as soon as I see daylight, I'm letting it fly. But it's a balance, right? Because you want your guys to have the confidence to shoot it. The best three is a step in three that's assisted. That's an inside out three. We're always talking to our guys about getting in the paint. I think that's something we've got to do more, right? Is get it into the paint, whether it's going into Joel or Led or Zub inside, drive it into the paint and then kick it out. Those step in threes are going to go down. We're confident we've got good shooters. Our defense has to be good enough to overcome, maybe a night like that, right? Like we just weren't quite good enough on the defensive glass and getting enough stops, to win that game. And I think if you're always talking about winning a game with your offense, like, hey, we needed to make more shots, you're probably going to end up, you're not going to be able to rely on that every night.
One of those good 3-point shooters, and I think some people might be surprised by this, is actually the birthday boy, Glenn Taylor, shooting 45% from three this season. Now, he hasn't shot a bunch and he's been really efficient on it, but he's taken a lot of good threes. This came up after the UConn game. And is it potentially a point of emphasis when you guys are looking for some knockdown shooters? And I know you guys are confident in a lot of your shooters, but with Glenn shooting such a high percentage so far and making sure he's taking good threes, is it a point of emphasis potentially to get Glenn some more of those kinds of looks?
To be truthful, we really don't talk about getting certain guys on the perimeter more shots. It's most of the threes should come naturally out of our offense, and the ball, if the ball has energy, the right look is the right look. I give Glenn a ton of credit because he really worked on his jump shot since he got here. He was shooting line drives, and coach always talks about front rim shooters. He's like, front rim shoot. If the ball hits the front rim, it's never going in, and you can't be a front rim shooter. And Glenn worked on shooting the ball higher, putting more arc on his jump shot, and making sure he wasn't leaving it short. And I think he's a very, very confident shooter right now, but he's not a hungry shooter. He's not a guy that's hunting threes off of screens or trying to quick release threes. He takes them when they come, when his feet are set, when his teammates can create them. So, we do have some actions where Glenn can get some looks from threes that we run for him. A lot of what he does, though, comes off of, our point guard getting downhill off of an action or going inside out, and he's spotting up in the corner. So, but he's certainly, at 45%, he's shooting it really well. And I give him a lot of credit because he worked on his jumper, still does every day to make sure he's comfortable shooting the ball.
Really interesting. Glenn and Jordan hit those two big threes against UConn. It was
in our hands at that point, right? I mean, it was like, here we go.
Back-to-back possessions. Johnny's hit the threes and took the lead. Coach Bob Walsh, Simeon Wilcher has played just a few minutes against Xavier and then sat for the entirety of the UConn game. Brady Dunlap sat for both Big East contests. As heralded freshmen with high expectations, how do you communicate through the growing pains, the learning, the development that's currently occurring for both players, and what is needed out of both of them right now in order to be contributors on the floor?
The simple answer is you coach them every day. You talk to them every day. You watch film with them. I mean, I had Brady in my office today after practice, watching film about what he needs to do better. You keep their confidence up. You make sure they continue to work on their skills and skill development and get extra shots up and work on handling the ball, understand the offense. The physicality of the game is a challenge for both of them right now. And it's just, you've got 23-year-old, 24-year-old dudes in the league, and you've got a couple of freshmen who are 18, 19 years old. The physicality is a challenge. So you got to talk to them every day. You got to make sure they understand. I mean, it is such it's such an instant gratification world right now that, they have one bad practice and it's easy for them to be like, my gosh, what's going on here? Hopefully we can get them to see long-term and understand that they're getting better. And they can both still help us. They're both really, really talented young players. It's just such right now with everything that's happened with the transfer portal, the extra COVID year, it's such an old man's game, in college basketball. Those guys both have a chance to be really, really special players for us. They both have really good attitudes. They work at it. I know they want to play more. Everybody wants to play more, but it doesn't impact what they're doing every day. And I think being in the fire every day with guys like Naheem and Jordan Dingle and Danis and, the veterans that we have are only going to make those guys a lot better on the other side.
Hofstra is next for St. John's inside the UBS Arena on Saturday. Hofstra's 7-5 with two really solid all-conference type players in Tyler Thomas and Darlin Stone Dubar. What's the approach heading into the last non-conference game of the season?
We've got to make sure our mind is right first, right? We just came off a tough loss with UConn, had a little break, came back to practice, and our guys have to understand how good Hofstra is, which I think we've done that the last couple of days. They're an elite shooting team. They're one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. They're a great offensive team because they can shoot it at 4 spots, sometimes 5 spots, if they play Dubar at the 5. So I think a big emphasis is going to be, as always with coaches, is not giving them open looks at threes, not giving them comfortable looks. I do think physicality will be important. We've got to get back to being a great rebounding team, especially on the offensive end. We will have a size advantage with Joel in there. But really our defense has to be better than their offense. That's kind of the simple way to put it, right? If this is a game where their offense is flowing and they're, running and getting to their spots and sharing the ball and shooting the ball, it's going to be hard for us to just try and outscore them. So we've got to make them uncomfortable with our defense. We've got to take the 3 away. And Thomas is an elite one-on-one scorer. I mean, he can, and we found out last year at Iona, we went to Hofstra and played them with a great Iona team, and they beat us, and we couldn't contain Thomas last year. So I think our guys will be ready to play. I think our guys are hungry after the loss, but we have to understand how good they are offensively and what we need to do to make sure they're not getting the shots they want.
Circling back to the zone defense once more, it's caused both Big East opponents to be uncomfortable, as I mentioned. By the time the Butler game rolls around, Thad Matta and his staff will have 3 games worth of tape on it potentially. How do you keep improving on it and adding wrinkles to ensure that it's evolving? And what are some of the things that, in regards to principles of it changing, because it is matchup based, like you mentioned. So how do you try to evolve it so that it's not potentially easy to prepare for?
Well, it's hard to prepare for because of the way we match up, and you're not necessarily tied to a specific area, right? So, a lot of it is time. Like our guys, sometimes our guards will have to switch spots, right? Or they'll send a cutter through, and we'll handle it a certain way. So, and then we invest a lot of time in scouting, right? So we understand the other team's personnel first and foremost, and then what they're looking to do against the zone. So there are a lot of different looks that we can give out of it. The way we play a screen in the zone, the way we handle a cutter, how we handle the post, what we do with an elite shooter. So I don't know that there's ever going to be an issue where it's like, okay, they figured it out, because Now teams will have success against it for sure, but a lot of it is based on what offense they're running and what their strengths are. So, I don't think they're ever going to be able to say, well, this is how St. John's is going to play us coming in and sort of figure it out. Our guys have learned how to play together in it. We have to keep getting better at it. They understand, what's really important in it. And then there's also some freedom to adjust when something happens, and we've just got to make the right play. And our guys are starting to get that.
Coach Bob Walsh, given that this is probably the last time we'll be recording an episode this year, what would be your assessment of St. John's up until this point in 2023?
I think we still have to get a lot better. I think we're, we've shown signs of being a really good team. I think we've improved. I'm not one that puts like mile markers on the season and says, okay, by this point we have to do this, or by this, it's not a straight line, winning and losing and progress. But I'm happy with the way our guys have come together. I think the group is connected. I think they understand what's expected of them. The bar is set very, very high by Coach Pitino, and we've got guys that are trying to get there. Our guys are hungry, seeing, the edge that we played with in the Xavier game, the intensity of the UConn game in a road game. Like our guys are desperate to be back in another environment like that. So hopefully we'll continue to get better and we can end up on the plus side in the Big East more than on the other side.
St. John's assistant coach Bob Walsh, thank you so much for joining me once again. Best of luck on Saturday against Hofstra. Johnny Nation, make sure you get out to the UBS Arena at noon on Hofstra and cheer on the Johnnies as they get ready to play the Flying Dutchman. Coach Walsh, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Dave. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Johnny Nation, thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time.